Morning. I think we're going to focus on this side, if that's all right.
Sure.
I think we're going to focus on this side, if that's all right. I think we're going to focus on this side, if that's all right.
Do you mind if we help ourselves with a cup of
I
coffee?
think we're going to focus on this side,
Great.
if that's all right.
Look at the view they get. Look, look. This is what hurt him.
Should be under. Streaming audio test 1, 2, 3. Streaming.
This would be good to, when we have the volunteers for HHI. Yeah. What we're doing for HHI, and the volunteers. This would be nice. We don't have to have a business card. I had a kid says, she's like, "Where's the business card? I have it at HHI. I have it in your purse." Don't you have your own? I said, yeah. I'll go. I'll make me one. Norway. It was from Vista Prince. Alex knows me all those places. That's exactly where she lived. That's where they make the 5, 3, and 4s and all that stuff.
So this business card. This is a business card. So it's in the bottom. Yes. Well, actually, Will and Ryan I have so much stuff we were looking for what we need.
Oh, I don't want to stick a fax on my print.
She's a ground up.
Oh, boy.
Will's actually working with her. That's actually
I need to get Joey's son over to simple facts. We know how to do that. Well, I need to get Joey's son to concept facts.
sometimes that's the best problem that we lose track of volunteers. They just start making so well in nonprofits that we don't really collect the hours. I did a week or something like that. I was like, hey, did you ever chance to work? And he's like, oh yeah, I finished this site. He's like, he's like, 36, 40 hours in this. So he's like, I was like, can you send me that? Like, tell me about it. Sure. I was like, I don't really like it. You have to look at this. Actually, we have a couple of volunteers. Some volunteers from Glen Park. That are in the marketing and design department. As part of their study, they have to do all this logo advertising. Like, quoted one time in an execution. Yeah, your logo or any sort of like physical two-dimensional like maybe like brochures maybe. We gave him, he gave us his he gave 3 different nonprofits, pretty good nonprofit logos. He said that's not so big. He's already got both logos. And he's like, I have more hours than you do. It's cool. Just taking your time and resources. So I don't give him.
I can send out, I can get my team manager.
Yeah, any sort of like social media marketing or it's that's what we're referring to as one part.
Social media marketing.
Social media marketing, graphic design. We have some WordPress designers where we have
It's like that you just, you see what I'm saying? Yeah, I understand. actually, I mean, that's still the same.
that, so that actually, well, it was still kind of a blog page. That's actually the only page you can do. So that was
What's the next thing? 15
But it does.
It's too exposed.
It was almost like a middle how everything bad. Now does do like pretty much everything in the field.
No, it just says
Yeah. You know, other people could do it. You know, simple, like non-breaking, right? Because it breaks people. What do we do?
oh my god. I didn't hear that like that's my basics too.
Calendar 2004.
Well, I don't have to go through some of this to be honest.
You just write down positive affirmations. Those are positive affirmations that show you the baseline data where you go. I understand. I never said you waste your. I never waste your time. I never waste your time. I understand. I know. It's good.
listen, talk to him, and like that conversation starts, you know, it's very close, and stuff. Even when they
I will look over. Yes, for everybody that just showed up, I'm going to start in like a minute or so, but if you want to grab, there's coffee and some delicious pastries and stuff like that. So it's pretty good coffee if you want it. Give it another minute or so and we'll get rolling. Make sure this works right. It does work.
This is really, this is so sad. It's a little complicated. It's so
Yes, yes.
Alright. We'll go ahead and get started and then these people trickle in. My name is Ben Weaver. I work for Pittsburgh Cares. I was part of the HandsOn Tech program last year as an AmeriCorps Vista. I've since been replaced by 4 awesome Vistas, but I still work for Pittsburgh Cares and I'm going to be doing this workshop today. So, the HandsOn Tech program in particular, if you're familiar with it, we do technology assessments for small nonprofits and then we recruit volunteers for various things. So, in particular, we look for WordPress volunteers, database developers, and pretty much everything. So if you're interested in the program as a whole, you can talk to me afterwards, or Ryan and Will are here from the AmeriCorps team. And then you the other side is that we do trainings, so we meet many nonprofits in the city, and that's what these are all open for. So this workshop is sort of website design for nonprofits, and it's something that Mark, our awesome Google mentor, and I have been talking about for about a year now, about just doing a high-level overview of just different web technologies and whatnot. I think the group that, when I was looking at the registration list, there's probably somebody from every single one of these categories that has one of those websites. So if you have particular questions about it or you have any insight into that particular platform, definitely let us know. But this is kind of an overview. When we go into nonprofits, we talk about, everyone says we need a new website, but there's all sorts of, that can mean a lot of different things. So this is just kind of a way to look at it. So what we'll do is we're going to go through just some basic types of websites, including the rather interesting, controversial topic of just not having one, which is always fun, and then just some general kind of jargon for people that aren't familiar, because there's some kind of basic terms that we run into that sort of make life easier if you know what they mean. At any point, definitely raise your hand if you have any questions or anything like that. This is just going to be more of a conversation guided by a slide, and then we have a lot of websites we'll pull up, and I'll probably pick on a bunch of yours and take a look at it and stuff like that. So for jargon, there's two basic things I always like to tell nonprofits or kind of clarify the difference between a domain and a host. If you're familiar with this, it's not terribly difficult, but basically the domain is the name of the site, and the host is where the site actually lives. And this is kind of a key thing because some providers do both of those. So when we ask people, where's your website, and they say GoDaddy, or where's your registrar, it can also be that. But sometimes you can have it hosted in different places. A good example of that is Google Sites, which is primarily a host versus a domain that you buy elsewhere. The domain is the key part. You always want to have that domain. I believe almost everybody here has that, and a lot of that is just claiming that space on the internet, owning that name. I own BenjaminWeaver.com for no reason other than that. One day, maybe I'll be really famous, and I don't want anybody to steal it. So you want to kind of claim that, and then that domain, you can make that redirect to anything. You can just bounce to a Facebook page. And then that can be as simple as that. But you always want to kind of have that base level domain. You also want to claim it because it's what you can use for email. So you can have email at a domain without having a website at all, but it gives you that organizational email address. There were a fair bit that were registered under Comcast and Yahoo names, which is fine, but it's worth looking into at least claiming that domain for your email address, just for business cards and whatnot. The host is generally where the website lives. It's usually another company. It can be the same as a registrar. It's not often hosted in your building. That used to be the case more frequently a while ago, but hosting your own website in-house can be kind of a logistical nightmare, and if your electricity goes out, your website goes down, is not an ideal scenario. So it's usually something that you're hosting at another company that has servers in California, or unfortunately a lot in New Jersey, like a couple weeks ago. The host can be, I sort of break it into two different types of hosts. There's platform-based, which is where the site, the content, the structure, and everything is handled by the company. So that's like Google Sites or WordPress.com, Squarespace, things like that. Or there's just general hosts, which is like DreamHost or Grassroots or Consolidated, which is more just a space for you to put the site. So that we'll kind of go over the differences between the two of those. And then some companies offer both. You can have your domain and your site with DreamHost. You can have just one or the other. Same with GoDaddy. A lot of companies handle that. There are thousands of registrars out there, so you can shop around. GoDaddy has the largest marketing presence of anyone, but just about almost any other internet provider has some sort of domain registrar where you can buy that name. It's usually not more like $10 a year at the most. Any questions about that? Those are just kind of basic things I always throw out there, because they are a little different. And then the other piece of jargon is CMS, because I like saying CMS all the time, so I want to explain what it is. If you've used WordPress or you've used Blogger to a certain degree or Google Sites, they're all kind of content management systems, and what that means is that the content and the design are separate. So you can go in and you can edit the text that's on a page, but you don't actually have to mess with the design at all. That's a CMS. It's a really, really good way to run a website regardless of what platform it is, because you don't have to think about the whole website, the design, any change effects, all sorts of things. You just need to worry about content or the design. The other really nice thing about CMS is that you could take WordPress, a really basic, dull, generic theme for WordPress, build your whole site, put all your content in, and then later on have a designer go in and change the design. They're not really rebuilding the site from scratch. The content is separate; it kind of fits into it. So it's nice to use a system like that because you can change the design or the content without having to start from scratch. Generally, CMSs are the ones that we run into are off-the-shelf systems, and that's or out of the box. So like a WordPress or something where someone has built it. There are local web design companies. If you've ever worked with Blue Archer, there's some local places that build their own CMSs for you to use. So it's kind of a hybrid between a custom-built site and something that you can update really easily. We'll kind of talk about why that's good or bad. Yes. Yeah, for the most part, something like Blogger or something like where you can apply a theme and it doesn't affect the content. That's kind of a CMS. Google Sites, you can think of it the same way. You can go in and change the theme and it doesn't actually erase anything that you've built. So I think it's a really good way to make a site because it is very easy to update, especially by multiple staff. And that's another nice thing about content management systems. You can let your HR person go in there and update the board list without having to worry if that person knows graphic design or all that. Keep that text kind of independent. Any questions about that? Pretty simple. All right. So here's the first option. No website at all. This is actually, 10 years ago, this probably would have been a terrible idea, but you can do things like this now. I'm sure if you guys all have Facebook pages or Google Plus or Twitter. So I mean, and in the case of Pittsburgh Cares, we rarely update our website, but we change Facebook twice a day. So you can sort of look at one option if you want is to have sort of a landing page that just directs you immediately to social media. We've seen that my personal, if you go to benjaminweaver.com, all it does is link you to Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, HandsOn Tech Pittsburgh. It just bounces you to other places. So it is an option. You can just sort of set it up as let the other platforms run it. Generally, if you can set up your own website, I think it's a good idea. But this is kind of, I would say this is the minimum sort of thing. Kind of a landing page that redirects to something else. Is anyone set up like this currently? You just sort of have a Facebook presence? Probably good. Other landing pages, there's about.me, which is more for people. That's the one I put up on that one. Called Unbalance. Can't actually read my own slide. Unbounce.com. So you just buy the domain and it's just a single page. Some very, very basic info on it. That is definitely one way to do it. They're very inexpensive or free, and then they can just kick to another service. That is one option. Second sort of type of site that we see a lot, and this is a really, really good one for nonprofits, is what I call it a hosted CMS. And so it's a CMS that's hosted on someone else's company, it's run by them, it's updated by them, and you just put your content on it. Google Sites is a really good one. We use that for the HandsOn Tech program because it's basically maintenance free. There's also WordPress.com, which is different than WordPress.org. Does anybody know the difference? Have you run into that? So what's that?
One you pay for, one you don't.
Yeah. WordPress.com is hosted WordPress, so it runs just like WordPress. I'll show you a slide on that, but WordPress.org is self-installed. That's free. WordPress.org is actually it's a downloadable package. You throw it on your own site. So I'll show you that in one second. It is a little bit different. The only cons with sites like this is customization is a little bit limited because you don't have access to the back end of the site. You don't have the ability to upload custom themes. Generally, you're kind of working with existing themes, things like that. So for hosted CMS, this is Google Sites. Google Sites is awesome. We use it for our own internal page because it's really, really easy to get going and it's pretty much indestructible. It's very, very hard to do anything to Google Sites to make it not work. It's also incredibly easy to set up really complex navigation. So if you have a project management site or a site where you're working with, in our case, 28 people across the country, it's very easy to add pages and allow people to access the site. You can set up navigation is sort of built in. Anything you add onto it, and you get these really complex levels of navigation. It also has really, really good integration with Google Docs and Calendar. So if you, we have another project management site that I don't have a picture of, but we have a lot of documents for all these different technical assessments, and we have all these pages for each nonprofit, and there's private access so the volunteers can see things on it. It's really, really easy to do that with Google Sites. It's completely hosted on Google servers, so really the only thing that you end up paying for is to buy the domain that sits on top of it. In our case, we don't even pay for that. It picks up the tab. So it's a really nice platform. I would say if there are any cons, it's probably that the templates are not as widely customizable. They're very, very functional and lightweight, so they load really quickly. You don't get a lot of the kind of really glamorous looking templates that you have with WordPress or with a custom site. One other thing I was going to mention. You can customize it. I mean, we went in and we changed the default. Oh, they also have site templates, so they have, you can build a project management site or a photographer website or a portfolio site. So you actually can kind of pick an initial theme and it organizes the site around it. So if you do a project management site, you get a built-in task management page, a built-in sort of member portal. So it kind of, when you first set it up, you kind of pick the type of website you want, and it builds in a lot of pages that you'll use. You don't have to create from scratch. Is anyone using Google Sites? Organization side of it? It's pretty cool. It's also good if you want to if you have a one-off fundraiser and you just want to set up a website with information about that really, really quickly. You can get it running in like 10 minutes. And it's live, and it's just sites.google.com/whatever you want. So it's very quick to get a website up and on the web. And then, of course, it's really easy to find in search results because it's on Google, so it's properly indexed and search engine optimized, and the navigation works. So it's pretty fail-safe as far as building a site that people will find when they're looking for it. Another hosted CMS is WordPress.com. And so this is hosted by WordPress, and then you can add a custom domain to it if you want. Otherwise, it's WordPress.com/whatever you want. You can add a domain over top of that for about $13 a year. They have a lot of, Mark will yell at me for this, but I think the themes are prettier on WordPress.com and Google Sites. I think. They're a lot nicer. They're a lot more. Oh, I'm sorry. They're a lot prettier. They're designed a little bit better, and they have a lot more room for images and things like that. There are a lot available on the site. Don't really have the ability to add extra ones to it, but there usually are ones you can find that work really well. Is anyone using WordPress.com? So it's nice. It's a really good platform. We don't see a lot of nonprofits using it when we run into, but it is something definitely worth looking at because it's like Google Sites. It's pretty indestructible in that it's hosted by WordPress. They run the patches and the bug fixes and the hosting, so you never have to worry about a plugin breaking and taking the site down for the most part. Things like that. They kind of take that control. Squarespace is another one that we've seen coming out lately. Squarespace is paid. It's a hosted CMS, and they don't currently have a nonprofit option. Do they? Well, you guys dug into that. They have like a discount on it or something. It's not a lot. It's cheaper than most hosting services anyway. They have really, really nice templates. Really clean looking sites. Designed a lot for if you're a photographer, you have a lot of design elements to the page. It looks really good. They also build in, like Google Sites and WordPress.com to a certain degree, they build in really good mobile templates. So when you set a site up, a lot of times it's just right out of the box. So it's really good on the phone. Google Sites does that as well, particularly because it's so lightweight. WordPress, you have to kind of find a theme that has a mobile element to it. But Squarespace is great. I have a couple friends using this for their own company's websites, and they're willing to pay a little bit for it to get the design control on it. Squarespace? It can, yeah. It works pretty well. Most of their themes are mobile optimized right off the bat. Wix is the other option, which I've only started playing with recently, but Louise, who's not here today, but she swears by it in her office. So, they also have really, really, really good looking designs. I think the one on the right is Wix, and the one on the left is Squarespace. And there are other versions of this out there as well. There's lots of other providers. These are just two of the kind of really pretty well-designed ones. Any questions about hosted CMSs? Okay, so the other type of CMS is what I call a self-hosted one, which is a content management system, but you keep it on your own space, which means you have total control over it for the most part. WordPress is kind of the traditional CMS that a lot of people think of. You download it from their site, you download the whole package, you throw it up in whatever storage space you want, and you install it, and then you can customize it to pretty much no end. There are other companies that do that, Drupal and Joomla, and I believe there's a couple Joomla sites here and Drupal sites as well. It's a similar thing to WordPress, but it's completely self-hosted, so you can do just about whatever you want to it. You kind of start with that default package. Big advantages to I would say these three CMSs is that there's a massive online support community. Any question you ever run into with WordPress, somebody has already asked it on the WordPress forums, and you'll find it. There's a lot of people out there. These three in particular are really nice. I would say from our standpoint, it's pretty easy to find volunteers for WordPress sites. There's just about any college student has played around with it. So rather than using a proprietary site, it's a little bit easier to find somebody that you can just drop in and say, like, my menu doesn't work. You can usually find somebody that knows WordPress and fix it pretty quickly. So the nice thing about it. Drupal and Joomla, I would say we have a hard time finding volunteers for them, and I'll kind of go through that in a little bit. So pros is basically unlimited customization and control. As much as you want to tweak the site, you can do it. The cons is that you do need to pay for separate hosting space or find separate hosting space. Joomla and Drupal are, WordPress has this thing they call the famous 5-minute install, and it's pretty quick. Joomla and Drupal are a little more complex to get running, but once they are up and running, they're pretty easy to make. The example I always give is Drupal runs whitehouse.gov. That's a pretty serious content management system. So if your nonprofit's at that level, definitely look at Drupal. But WordPress tends to handle most of what you want to throw at it. So this is WordPress.org. It's the same basic platform as WordPress.com. WordPress originally was this downloadable blogging platform, and they added the .com where they host it to make it a little easier. WordPress will work on just about any host, and there are a lot of customizations. You do have to manage the updates and the patches on your own. If you are looking for hosts, I really, really like DreamHost. We set up nonprofits with that a lot. They offer free hosting for nonprofits. If you're 501c3 and you fax in your determination letter, which we had to dig out 20 years ago, but if you fax it in, then they give you the base level free hosting. I pay DreamHost like $120 a year to host my own email server. It's free for nonprofits. Really, really nice. DreamHost, Bluehost, I think GoDaddy to a certain degree. A lot of sites now offer what they call one-click installs for WordPress and Joomla and Drupal, where they will install it for you, and they do manage the updates to a certain degree. DreamHost manages WordPress pretty well. They'll email you and say there's a new update or your site's broken or something like that. And they don't really maintain it for you, but they kind of keep an eye on it. So it's a nice hybrid. You want a lot of control, but you want somebody to back you up. I have plenty of screens. Another self-hosted option is Joomla and Drupal. These are much more complex hosts, but they can do a lot more with the site. You can, if you're looking for a member portal, if you want people to have to log in to see certain things, you can do that on WordPress, but you can do really complex logins within Joomla and Drupal. Who's using Joomla? New Catholic Youth Association. Do you guys have a particular reason you're using Joomla versus anything else, or that's just kind of what it was set up as? Okay. Okay. Yeah, and it is nice. WordPress has, to a certain extent, WordPress has caught up in some senses to Joomla and Drupal, because they were kind of the real content management systems, and WordPress was focused a little more towards bloggers. WordPress has kind of expanded out of that. Does anyone ever use Civi CRM? It's like an open source customer management Google tracking system. It's really nice. it used to only run behind Joomla and Drupal. Now they integrated it with WordPress. It's a really nice system. That's a totally separate topic, but Joomla and Drupal, you can really tweak them. The downside is that at a certain point, you do need a little bit of programming knowledge. I think. I mean, I've set up 2 of these as demos, and it's doable. It's not as elegant to set up. I think that I think there are benefits to these two, but I usually when we work with the nonprofits, I usually make them really give me good reasons why they don't want to use something like WordPress or Google Sites and why they need Joomla or Drupal. There's usually not for nonprofits under say 50 staff. I don't think there's a huge reason for it. The other trick is that it is tougher for us to find volunteers that know these. You're usually looking more for a web developer volunteer than a public policy student that just happens to know WordPress. You're usually looking for a programmer and looking for volunteers on these. But they are open source communities. They have huge user forums. Drupal has a nonprofit template that you can just drop on. It looks like a zoo. It's like built for an animal shelter. So it's weird. It's tough to customize right off the bat. It doesn't look like any nonprofit you ever work with. So it is a good site. I don't have any pictures of this just because this is a general website. The final option is a custom built site. This is where somebody just builds your site from scratch. It can be a content management system. Like I was saying, Blue Archer does that. They have their own proprietary CMS. Generally, these are going to be hosted on your own space, and then you edit it manually using something like Dreamweaver or an online editor. If anyone uses HiWeb, this can be good with a really simple HTML editor. The pros are, absolute 100% customization. You build it from the ground up to be exactly the way you want it to look. The cons, and for nonprofits, I think it's a particularly big con, is that they can be tougher to edit in the long run, particularly if you need to go back to the design company and pay them to update your board lists and things like that. If you're looking at a custom-built site, just make sure that you kind of are thinking, what does this look like a year from now when I need to change the phone number on the footer or something like that. Because sometimes they're really, really pretty sites. These can be the best-looking websites, but they can be really the hardest ones to update after the fact. So just kind of keeping that in mind. These are my favorites. I'm sorry, I think only, is anyone here from North Hills? Oh, you guys from I think that's the only one I have up on there. 9 Mile Run has a really nice one as well. So these are kind of example sites if you want to see. We'll send this slide out to everybody as well, but to see kind of how these different things can work. Silver Stripe. Who's here from 9 Mile Run? Yes. Silver Stripe's really cool. I hadn't seen it until you filled out that form, but it's another CMS, so it's kind of like a WordPress.com. It's self-hosted, it looks like you have to download and install it, but it does look like pretty good. It's an open source CMS as well, so they have a good community. You don't have to pay for it. I haven't played with it that much, but it looks good and it runs their site really well. Catholic Youth Association is a good example of a really kind of nice-looking, fairly complicated Joomla site. Which site's yours? Sorry, Second Chance. Okay. That Second Chance dash, no, dash kinship. Okay. CTAC Pittsburgh just had their website rebuilt. They were a really good example where they got a grant to pay a design firm to rebuild their site, but have the design firm build them a custom WordPress site that is really easy to update, and they basically just have the design firm build them a theme for WordPress. So they host it, they have complete control over it. It's very easy for them to go in and update it, but it looks awesome. I'll show you that in a minute. It's my new favorite example of a WordPress site. Who's here from the Botanic Garden? Your site's awesome, too. It's on WordPress. Very, very pretty. It's got, I'll show you guys a picture of that one as well. Dress for Success Pittsburgh has a WordPress site, and Cancer Caring Center has a really decent one as well. Theirs is nice because a volunteer built it in like 3 days. So I'll kind of show you. Any questions about all that? This is definitely just sort of open if you have any questions about particular platforms and whatnot. So what I'm going to do, pull up a couple. So you've all probably seen this if you registered. This is just a basic Google site that we use for it. We are potentially rebuilding it in WordPress, which, sorry Mark, but I think we're going to rebuild ours in WordPress because it's we want to add some more resources pages and make it a little bit more interactive for the nonprofits. So we're kind of looking at tweaking that. This is CTAC's site. So this is my best case right now of what WordPress can do. This is just standard WordPress platform with a really nice theme wrapped around it. This is totally doable. It's not a bad way to go about rebuilding a site if you're looking at it, which is where you do have a design company develop the theme and make it look really well, but then that's it. You know, their relationship with that design firm doesn't necessarily have to continue because they can update this pretty easily. They can change the menu items, and it loads really fast. So it's a good site. Yeah.
I see that they have a donate tab.
Yes.
At the top. How are the donations actually processed?
I don't know. Let's see.
Through what service?
It's probably PayPal, I would bet. Yep. They just have the PayPal button. So I mean that's one way to do it. Any site you can link those in. Google Sites works really well with integrating Google Checkout /wallet. That works. You can have both. I think the Education Partnership uses the Joomla site and then it donates through. I think they use PayPal, Google Wallet, Network for Good. I'm not sure. Yeah, they're all about the same now. PayPal and Google's checkout. Google used to be free for nonprofits. They didn't charge a transaction fee, but they do now. So it's kind of a whichever system works best. Google Checkout's good to invest in or at least set up because if you want donations via a nonprofit YouTube page, it's the only option. So it's worth at least getting an account set up with them. But most yeah, in this case, I'm sure CTAC just added the PayPal code, just sort of embedded it into it. You generally are not going to want to run. I don't think you want to run donations through the website companies. Usually you want to use one of those outside companies that's what they do. They deal with money all the time. So. I'm going to load up, let's see. This is the Botanic Garden site. Oh, nope. I did that before. Is this an old website that you guys had? Okay. Thought I had. It should go just to the .org, right? Let me kick out of this real quick. So this is another, it's built on WordPress. This is a really nice theme. It's a custom theme, right? It looks like, did you guys contract somebody to build it? Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great, I mean, you could take this theme, not that they would necessarily do this, and give it to CTAC, and CTAC's page would look just like this, but with the CTAC content. That's the nice thing about WordPress is that you can build the framework around it, but keep the content independent of that. I really like this theme. So, unfortunately, you know, it's not one of the. There are a lot of available online. This one, since they had it built, you couldn't necessarily go out and download it, which is, you know, that's custom to their organization. So those are kind of two very different examples of what WordPress can look like if you really tweak it. Is it pretty? It's pretty easy to update. You guys like updating and whatnot? I mean, I would think it's update, but I'm always curious how staff thinks. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Let's see, what else do I have up on that site? Run through this really quickly. We'll take a look at North Hills Community Outreach is great. Kevin built this last year. He was one of the AmeriCorps Vistas we worked with last year. He built this just single person. The nice thing with North Hills is that they have separate sites, so their community auto site uses a similar theme, and it's organized the same way, but they're able, because it's WordPress, they're able to make one-off versions of it for different departments, since their community auto is a little bit different than the garden. I think the garden site's a separate, oh no, merged in. Thought there was a third, but you can very easily build the site and then customize a few colors if you have a different department or a benefit coming up or something like that. So it's a very simple WordPress theme. I think it even says what it is at the bottom, or it used to. He had it. It does. Okay, so theme Z. So Kevin found a theme, tweaked it, found this corporate theme, went on, did some adjustments to it. It's all free. It's built in. Change the header image and whatnot. So it's really you can find a lot of really good themes out there with some minimal customization, get them up and running. Cancer Caring, we recently had a volunteer help them rebuild the site. This is a very, very simple WordPress theme, but it's based off a mobile optimized one, so it scales pretty well. So if you're looking at it on a phone, it adjusts the images and restacks them. So themes that have mobile options in them are really nice because it moves around a little bit better. This was a random college student volunteer that did this, and I think he put in maybe about a week's worth of work doing it after school and whatnot. So, and now they can go in and they could work with a designer to build a more customized theme or tweak the existing one, and none of their content has to change. So that's another good example of it. Catholic Youth Association is a Joomla-based site, so it's a little bit more complex. Joomla works really well in terms of having logins, so they have member portals, they have people that can log in and see different pages. That's built in a little bit better into Joomla and Drupal than WordPress. There are WordPress plugins that allow that sort of login, but it's always been kind of a thing for Joomla. So if you're looking for a member-oriented site or something like that, Joomla or Drupal is a nice one to use. And they have a lot of other widgets and navigations on it and everything like that. Let's see. Anybody want to throw their site up? Free promotion? Let's take a look at 9 Mile Runs too. So this is Silver Stripe, so it's a similar sort of thing. It's a custom content management system that they put onto it. Did you guys build this in-house? Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's another one. It's just like WordPress in that you go to Silver Stripe, you download the package, put it on your own site, and then it's all yours from there on out. It's pretty cool. I hadn't seen it before, but it's another interesting looking option, and it has a user community behind it that can answer questions and things like that. So, yes. Squarespace, I did not. I actually don't know. Do you know? Is anyone using Squarespace for their nonprofit? I don't know of any nonprofits that are using it. Let's see. So Squarespace is very much geared towards designers. And it is a paid template, but it's hosted by them. It's completely hosted, and it tends to be fairly indestructible, like WordPress.com or Google sites. So there's a lot of different templates within it. I haven't explored how customizable it is, but there are a lot of really, really good-looking templates within it. It might be worth a 14-day trial and kind of dig through it. You can tweak it. Let me see if I'm not going to find my friends use it for their little urban blog, and they like it a lot, but they're not a nonprofit, so not that one. But in any case, yeah, Squarespace is definitely one of those that's creeping up. We looked at using Wix for our own site. For an AmeriCorps budget, even $14 a month is drastically over budget. So we're sticking with WordPress or Google Sites, but it's worth looking at. There's some very, very nice templates you can do in here. I haven't played with it too much though, so if anybody uses Square or Squarespace or Wix and wants to kind of present next year on how it's good for nonprofits, let me know. Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. Oh yeah, let's pull up Wix. Wix has a weird, don't they have a strange pricing model where it's sort of free until you start to really use it? as soon as you want to go to a new analytic,
The price goes up from there. Let's see if there's any other ones we want to throw in. Oh, I mean, this we use this internally as with all the organizations that are AmeriCorps in Pittsburgh. This is a good example of why Google Sites is, like, there's 15 different people that edit this site randomly. It's not the prettiest looking site, but it's really clean and easy to update and have a lot of people interacting with it and basically make it not breakable. Google Sites also allows you to share access the same way that you share Google Docs. So you don't have to create a user account. You just say this person's email address is allowed to edit the site, and they're able to get into it and work on it. That's kind of the basic overview of it. Is there any questions, anything in particular you wanted to dive into? Yes, Lexi. Visits to the site. You generally are going to be using an outside analytics source, like Google Analytics is built into Google Sites, but you can put the code in just about any other site. WordPress does have their own like internal insights in it and everything. So I mean, it's sometimes built into the platform. If you want to, if it's not, you can usually just throw in the Google Analytics code and then track that outside of the page. I think Joomla and Drupal usually will have like code snippets where you just put in your analytics, Google Analytics number, and then paste the code in, kind of build it. It's usually behind the scenes, so it doesn't affect the design of the site. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking into some sort of analytics, regardless of which platform you use. The content, that's another good example of why a content management-based site is good, because you can just put that analytics code in the theme, and then it's on every page and it tracks independently, versus a custom-built site, you do need to go into every single page that you want to track and embed that code, which is not terribly difficult, but something to consider. A theme-based site, usually you're only updating one page and everything changes. Yes? Okay. For WordPress itself? That's a good question. I would probably back up the whole site, just download the whole WordPress, keeps everything nestled, just back it up and update it and see if it breaks it. And if it works, then it just keeps working, but if it doesn't, then you can just replace the site with the old one. I don't know of a way to do like a temporary upgrade. I would bet for your site, I bet it would be okay, the 5.1, because I don't think if you don't have any crazy plugins or anything like that, usually the WordPress upgrades are pretty good, because you're just updating stock WordPress. If you have a lot of plugins and customizations, then you want to be a little bit more aware of upgrading it. And it depends what you're using it for. WordPress keeps adding features to the new versions, but like the Corporate Volunteer Council page that we run through Pittsburgh Cares, we haven't updated it in probably a year because none of the new features are worth breaking the site for. So we just kind of have left it be until a feature comes out that we're like, we want that new feature. We're just probably going to keep it the same. So you don't have to upgrade it. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, all the forms and the documentation will stay with the most recent update, so that is a good reason to keep up with it. You had a question all the way in the back, yeah. I think it's more for mobile. It's more dependent on the theme that you're using. Like you can have a terrible WordPress or a really good looking WordPress theme that's terrible on mobile, and a really good Joomla one. So it depends on the theme. When you're searching for themes now, like WordPress actually allows you. It's called responsive design. Is usually what they refer to it as. So if you're looking at, let's say, the WordPress theme repository. I'm trying to remember where this is. And Joomla and Drupal have a similar thing to this, where you can. I'd have to look, but you can actually look and see whether or not it's a responsive theme or not. So there's tags on them. Of course, I picked one that doesn't have it, right? But generally, picking a good theme off the bat is usually a better way to go. Okay, so they have a whole category called, this is the responsive theme. This one is actually a really good theme, by the way, if you're looking for one. The theme is just called responsive. It's really, really basic, but it updates really well, and I think the developer actually tells you not to use the theme as it is. It's kind of a template for a responsive theme, and you want to go in and change your colors and your logos and all this stuff right off the bat. But he built this one as it flows onto tablets and everything like that. Basically, all a responsive theme is if you have blocks, the blocks just know to sort of flow and stack and move downwards. This is just the theme website. So this is if you just search for WordPress responsive theme, that's the one that comes up. I think the Cancer Caring Center site is built off of this theme, but I'm not sure. Let me see if it'll kind of show you what it does. So if you smash this over, the theme itself, just see how it does that? It basically breaks. The widgets automatically stack, they automatically resize. It's a really, really nice theme. It's really elegant for that. Most themes work okay. The other thing is if you have a really, really light website, like our HandsOn Tech site is, it's not very mobile friendly, but it's really lightweight, so it just loads quickly on a phone, and you just have to scroll in and zoom around. That works as well. And then there's the whole argument about Flash. Will and I've gotten into it. So I generally say stay away from Flash because a lot of people have iPhones. You just have to accept that. That's a necessary thing. But Flash navigation is not a good way to go. I will pick on Community Human Services. Anybody here from Community Human Services? They had a Flash navigation bar, which meant that their website just did. You loaded it on a phone, you couldn't go anywhere. That was it. That's not a good user interface. Like, even if you really, really like Flash, at least build in something so if you load up the site, you can click on like hours and notifications. They changed it though. We hammered on them, and they made it slightly better. Any other questions? Yes. These are great websites. There's probably a lot of those. There's probably like awards for the best awarding site. I don't know any off the top of my head. I would bet if you're looking at the problem with those things is they usually gear towards really large nonprofits. I've found. I don't know if they'll say this is a great social media strategy and it's how the Red Cross is doing it, which is usually just drastically out of budget. But I would generally just look around in Pittsburgh. I mean, we try to gather them when we work with nonprofits, and that's why I kind of CTAC has sort of floated up to the top for me. But there are a lot of decent ones. I should back up because we were talking about this earlier. A really pretty website that's inaccurate is way worse than a really, really basic website that's incredibly accurate. The example, and I always pick on them, is Lawrenceville United's page. It's not a very elegant looking website, but it's like updated within the hour because they put their block watches on here. They use Dreamweaver. It's not even a CMS. It's pretty much just one page, but it is incredibly accurate and up to date, which is a much more functional website than one where your phone number is wrong and your mailing address isn't accurate. So I actually generally err towards this kind of website. If you're at all worried about it, don't do a really complicated, beautiful Joomla theme that 2 weeks from now you can't change at all. So that's always something to keep in mind. Make sure that you can update it and make sure you can keep your website current. So. Yep.
So that's the first representation we see of it. Do you think that there's a medium or like a half acre where it looks very nice, but it's easy to edit and update and manage?
I would say, biased personal opinion, I think WordPress.com is a really good medium point because it's a pretty unbreakable site that you can update. .org is good as well, but .com is a lot more indestructible, I guess. When we work with nonprofits, we find that they want user portals and community portals and ways people can log in and all these great advanced features. Those are really, you want to think of those down the road, and I think focus on getting a really easy to update, clean looking site first. So I generally look at WordPress if you're starting over, or Google Sites to a certain degree. But yeah, I mean, all that being said, we're working to get a volunteer to rebuild Lawrenceville Unites on WordPress. So I mean, that's kind of the track that they want to go as well. Does that kind of answer your question? I mean, I do think you do want the site to look a little bit prettier than this. In their case, they're primarily focusing on people looking for block watch information, so their audience is not as donation. They're not as much worried about private funders and things coming in. But if you do have that, you want to have a nicer looking site. The other catch to that, which is always really interesting, is something like Three Rivers Community Foundation has a really, really nice website, which when we worked with them last year, we were like, oh, they're going to be way above our budget cap for AmeriCorps because their website looks so professionally done, and they actually only have 2.5 staff. So sometimes your website can make your organization, for better or for worse, look a lot bigger and a lot more well-funded than it necessarily is, versus a scrappy website, which sometimes draws viewers in, I guess. But it depends on how you want to approach that. Yep.
As an artist, it's very important that if we have a site, that the imagery that's on the site can easily be put into different kinds of portfolios for gallery owners and other exhibition specialists to review the work. Is there a site where they can capture these images really easily and transport them to their own whatever's?
So they can download them or move them around. Yeah, most of the templates will allow you to do that. I mean, most of like a portfolio WordPress templates actually be geared around making sure people don't steal your images. But usually, normal templates you can pull images out pretty quickly. Let's see how quickly we can steal something. Depends on the theme, but if you're looking at this is probably not the best example of it. No, we don't have any images on it. So Dress for Success, it depends on how it's set up. So like this theme actually disables some of the, oh, this will work. Yeah, most themes you can usually just right click on the images and open them up, but a portfolio based theme will give you the option to download a high-res version of the image. Google Sites is sort of built in for that as well. You can usually open the images really quickly. If you're looking for like a site that looks really nice as a portfolio, I think Wix and Squarespace probably have the best easy to set up artist themes because they're heavily based towards the graphic design community, things like that. Yes? Nope, no stupid questions. Not much. I mean, WordPress was originally was geared towards blogging, and that's what it focused on. They've just added the ability to customize it more. So when you're looking at WordPress now has posts and pages are more static and posts are more the traditional blogging thing. WordPress continues to sort of improve in making it more usable. Two or 3 years ago, you probably, I don't know, I don't think I would have built a website out of it unless it was a blog-oriented website. If you're Polish Hill, because they sort of run everything through. Has anybody been to Blogski? Blogski is pretty awesome. So Polish Hill, all their information goes on this. So this is a WordPress blog format that they use as their communication method about everything. So this is more of a nonprofit whose website is more of a blog than a standard website. But WordPress, if you pick the right themes, then it just sort of. Yep. Yeah, it just depends on what flexibility you want. So. Yeah, you can still have it. I mean, it's still based around that core functionality where they had all those posts and blogs. And then the flip is sort of where you have Google Sites where the regular templates are normal pages. You can choose a blogging site template in the beginning and runs a lot like WordPress does. It's just a different way of looking at how frequently the site's updated. Yes? Mm-hmm. If you have it depends on the widget. So this theme probably has a widget built in that's a slideshow. You can find a slideshow widget for Google Sites. I don't know one off the top of my head, but somebody, it's just a matter of somebody out there having written the code to drop into it. Yeah, let's take a look. Let me log into this real quick. So I'll see if I can mess up our... Ryan and Will are probably cringing right now because I'm just going to destroy this front page. Google Sites has version control, which makes it really easy to roll back things, so you can be really destructive and then just go back later. So that's why we like it as well. Let's see. Oh, I don't have access to this. So let's see, if you wanted to edit this page, so it loads up a live editor, and then you can say insert Picasa slideshow. So you could keep your images in the Picasa album and then just throw a slideshow in it. There should be a standard, they call them gadgets. I'm sorry, WordPress they're widgets, Google Sites are gadgets. It's my fault. All right, slideshow. Yeah. They might not. They might want you to just use the Picasa one. So you could insert web slideshow. It'll probably ask you to pick an album. I don't know if I actually have any albums. Oh, we did. Okay, let's just throw this up there. So if you have an album stored on Picasa or Google+, let's make it extra large. This is really going to mess up the site. Okay. So they do have widgets like that. There you go. I don't know how it's going to load. We might have those photos set to private, so they may not load in the slideshow by default. Yeah, I might have to tweak that, but I mean that kind of botched the layout a little bit. But you can generally all the platforms will have some sort of widget, and photo slideshow on the first page is a pretty common one. So that's something you'll probably find in whichever platform. You just might have to dig. WordPress with the theme, sometimes you'll find a theme that has those widgets built into it already, and that usually the author of that theme has made them work really well with it.
Is it possible to look around for free code for a slideshow?
Mm-hmm. Usually just run a search for it. I mean, it depends on the platform, but usually the user forums. Like if you go to Joomla, there's a themes forum. If you go to Drupal or WordPress, there's usually a way you can just run a search for free widgets or gadgets. Or if you're starting from scratch, just look for a theme that kind of has some of the features in it that you want. So the theme that the Corporate Volunteer Council page uses was built heavily around having users log in so they can see content that only members can see. So we've originally found a theme that sort of added this login button front and center and was built around that. Not the prettiest theme ever, but it works really well for member access. Yes? I would say yeah. For exchanging documents and internal communication, it's really, really easy to set up a Google site to do that. All the other platforms will do that as well, but if you're using Google Docs or apps, it cheats. Everything's in one system. I'll show you the program site. I don't know if this is still live, but this is out of date. We don't actually use this anymore, but this was a project site we built last year. Let's see if it loads up. So this was an internal site that we used to track volunteer management. So it allows you to very quickly, set up navigation. You can build in a task list that's automatically based around a spreadsheet for that particular nonprofit. So a lot of that can be tied in. We use Google Apps for everything as well, though. So everything is in Docs and spreadsheets for us. So it's very easy to build a site around that. But for sharing information and doing intranets, I think right out of the box you can get a Google site running really quickly. And you can even build a site just for your intranet that's separate from your main website, you know, and people just know to go to that page when they want to exchange information.
Ben, can you show us how, when you want to go into Google Analytics and you want to see how many hits are on your site,
Yep.
things like that, can you show us that?
Sure, I'll give you a brief one. We're actually going to or is it officially announced? We're going to do an analytics workshop on December 11th. Oh, that's good. I'm glad people are shouting at the end. I don't know. I'll probably be teaching it, but that's good to know it's on the 11th. I'll put that on my calendar. So analytics, I'll show you the analytics on our site. I always misspell it. Let me switch it. I don't think I have access to that. And we use, because the HandsOn Tech site uses Google Sites, you just punch in the analytics code in the settings somewhere and it automatically puts it on all the pages. It would be a little different if it was on WordPress, but the nice thing about analytics is you put that code on your website, let your website do its thing, and then you can go into the analytics panel and kind of look at it. You don't have to, it's sort of a separate page. So let's see, this is HandsOn Tech. And this changes a lot, but analytics basically allows you to go in and see exactly where people are coming from. We use traffic sources a lot, because this allows us to see who is referring traffic to us. So you can see, you know, most people are, what people are searching for, whether they're searching for the hands-on with the space or not, things like that. And you can see sort of sources, and see what the sources look like. So most of the people that come to our site are typing in the address directly. The second most are searching for us, which is great, and then the third most are coming from Pittsburgh Cares. So that's actually kind of ideal for us, but it allows us to see where traffic's coming from. There's a lot analytics. There's a lot to it though that we'll be able to go in, but it's pretty cool. My favorite thing about analytics is because it's all in the past, you can't break analytics. Like you just click around. Like you don't turn it off or anything. It's all data that's already been collected, so it's kind of fun. It's a pretty harmless thing to go nuts with, especially if you geek out on data like I just. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. Yeah. Google Analytics has some more complicated ways that you can embed it into social media. I think Facebook's Insights actually work pretty well independently, but you can embed, there are apps that you can put into Facebook that use your analytics code, and it's worth looking at as well. This is just people that have clicked links on the Facebook page, so it's less about like views and the reach of the posts and things like that. We also have only been using Facebook for like 2 weeks, so it probably looks really bad. Yeah, most, like Constant Contact will track the site, they track the links independently. I believe Constant Contact, you can put a Google Analytics code into it, and it allows it to tie into this. That's a really good question. I'm going to put that on my list for the workshop in December, because we haven't dealt with that. We go to Constant Contact and look at those analytics, go to Facebook and look at theirs. We don't really have it as rolled in as we should. Constant Contact. Will is going to research that and then tell me. And then we'll add it to the slideshow. Any questions on this side? Sorry, jumping around. Cool. All right. Well, it's 11:30. We're going to kind of hang out. We usually try to get out of this room by about noon, just so, because I know Mark's got to go do work and stuff. Oh, Will has a quick survey if you could fill it out, and definitely leave any comments. If there's a particular area of this presentation that you want another workshop on, that's what we do, whatever you guys want to learn. So if there's a particular one you want us to run, we'll try and find someone that's a pro in that area to come in and take a look at it. I don't know if you guys, are you guys wrapping it? But anyway, I mean, thanks for coming out to our workshop. We really appreciate it. Next one is Salesforce in 2 weeks downtown, and then Google Analytics in a couple weeks. But it's all on our website. So thanks very much. On Wix? I only learned about it like 2 weeks ago, but Louise in our office swears by it. She really likes it. I actually had it up on the CMS slide earlier. If you're looking for ones that I think that you can like invest a little bit of money into those themes, it looks really, really nice.
I've been using it.
Yeah.
And they finally converted from Flash to HTML5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they were Flash before that. Oh, that's not good. Well, that's good that they're on that one.
Yeah, so I'm actually supposed to go to the website for my foundation.
Oh, okay.
So another thing, if we wanted to kind of tie in with you guys, we would be a good contact.
For like the technical assessment and whatnot.
Pittsburgh Cares as a whole.
Sure. I'll just give you my card.
Sure.
Yeah, I work on the community connections team, Bobby, and you guys are looking for volunteers. And
Thank you. You actually helped us out. We worked with Dream Crane.
Yes.
We did the ice cream.
You guys are the Intuit site, right?